Are you an empath? Do you feel like just drained of helping everybody? Are you beating yourself up that you haven't taken responsibility to get the help you need because you've been taking on everyone else's responsibility? That had been me for a long time, for most of my life, being an adult, because there are things that you're not going to outgrow until you have a wake up call. I would have this superhero syndrome where I thought saving everybody was the ultimate way to include them in what you're building and see the good in them by sort of seeing the skills that nobody else sees, all this kind of stuff. You're draining yourself, your resources, your finances are being kind of drained. Nobody's really sharing, and for a long time, it actually feels pretty good to do this with family, with friends, and especially if you're community oriented, it feels really, really good. But then eventually, your life kind of blows up in front of you, and you have these events that happen that are pretty big events that you really didn't think you saw coming, but you might have seen signs that you later come to understand when it comes to like a lot of things: losing family, getting out of touch, threats to your survival. And you start to become and go through this path of like bitterness. And while I actually think that getting away from the sugar rush of completely immersing yourself in being empath and immersing yourself in giving, a little bit less sugar is necessary. A little bit of strong black coffee is going to help you. And having strong black coffee or even a good straight up tea and getting in the habit of having less sugar is going to be really, really helpful for you in life anyway. Like, it's healthier to do that. Not being so sugary on the inside and only being sweet to those who are really, really close to you. And not necessarily always because you feel a certain way, because sometimes you can feel a certain way and you've got to separate that. But, what do you do? And this is something I've really found the problem solving skills for in introspection. What do you do when you heal? And like, how is it that you heal when you've given your whole life to family, to friends, and you've never had really a full support system? You maybe had partial support systems, you've had temporary support for a long time, but you were never born into like a full system of support that carries over from generation to generation. You are going into adulthood, you've grown up fast, and you have those that are extremely close and supportive to you, but maybe it's not going to be a full closeness that's going to like save you. It's not designed to save you from everything. It's You still go through your own shit, right? And so we're going to find, all the relating in the world means that we're not alone in these experiences, but we're going to find, this mantra that really helps you to get away from the bitterness of being an empath, the bitterness that comes after living an empathic life. And the only mantra that you need to say is one when you are acting out in your life in accordance to moving on. And so, what does that look like? You start to get bored of thinking about the past now, finally. You don't have a whole lot to overthink anymore. You come up with exact explanations. You're able to express your art through realization and awakening that can show through your art now. You're coming up with you're creating your own conclusions that you realize are past imaginative storytelling of yourself and are based on not everybody's reality necessarily, but your own reality. And then you're also coming to the conclusion that everybody is allowed to change directions, and so are you. If they're allowed to change directions and do something different, then that's what you've been doing the whole time. And in fact, they've been going a different direction, and you've been too busy in your own life helping yourself to actually watch them go in a different direction. And you're allowed to actually do that. You have permission from your yourself, your higher power, to actually do that. It's not something you have to actually, you no longer have to carry the guilt of not seeing the signs, of not, because you realize that you've actually been going in a whole different direction, running all along, being very busy, running a marathon this entire time of life. And you recognize that these other people have been turning around in a separate direction to their own benefit as a favor to you, because you're no longer responsible for giving so much that you are dehydrated, right? So the mantra that you got to start telling yourself, and even if this looks a little bit differently in a year from now, even if you have to change and tweak the mantra, I'm all about you tweak your meditations, you tweak the guidance I give you. You're not out to replicate things. I don't believe in copying and pasting verbatim all the time with systems unless it's like super artificial intelligence or something that's really advanced or premium in an experience of the sort of what we're living in. And so what you do is you're going to say this mantra that when you recognize this overwhelming sense of realization that you express to yourself in your introspections and your learning and thinking, and you're getting bored with the past, and you still have the same sort of understanding, but you are bored with bitter feelings, and you sort of become a little bit annoyed with it instead of intense about it. What you eventually realize is the only reason, this comes with a realization, it's not just some fluffy mantra, but what you realize is the entire time you let these people inside of you, is the entire time you let these people in your life and you gave and gave and gave, they came in for your shelter, for your time and space that you gave them. And maybe at that time, believe it or not, maybe you were designed to heal some part of these people. Maybe you were designed to heal them. Now, that doesn't mean you were the perfect family member, the perfect in-law, the perfect friend by any stretch of the imagination, but maybe at a certain point you were designed to teach something and heal in some kind of way at that point. And now that job is done. It's a very weird feeling because we want to tell ourselves that every relationship is forever. We want to tell ourselves that every friendship is, you're designed to be friends forever if it's the right friends, if it's a good friend. That's not necessarily true. This could apply to different partnerships as well, and businesses and marriages, but the business partnerships are another form of relationship that comes with its own realizations that you work through, that those that you've healed, you've also been taught by as well. Like, you can realize that you've been taught by somebody who collaborated with you, you've been taught by people while you were healing them at the same time. Marriages and things like that, it really depends, because those relationships, I would hope, would take a lot slower time. Those relationships are very serious in marriages and things like that. So you don't want to rush into any sense of not doing the work it takes for that relationship. And I'm not somebody to talk to about ending those kinds of relationships. But if you do need to do that deep work, there's plenty of resources online. But when it comes to the relationships that you are finding yourself involved in that are to do more with society, community, surrounding yourself, obligation, friends, family, that kind of thing, relatives, you start to realize that you're the one. You've actually been almost assigned, or you've been sort of put there, and they were able to use you because you were useful, not because you were weak. And so what you realize is that this whole mantra is, they came into your life, they all came to get in to your shelter, to get inside of you and just drain you. And so once your presence and surrounding walls have really healed them, you start to recognize and say this mantra that you've healed these people that have never been in your best interest for relationships the whole time, but they were there for you to heal them, and you were there to learn from them. You heal them, and now you have the right, when everybody's changing directions, you have the right to release them. That is why in a lot of titles lately, and music and narrations and just insights to you, I talk about, I heal you, I release you. That's my mantra. You can use that one, but I hope that you tweak it to your circumstances or your specific life experience, instead of using some quote that somebody gave you online, like anybody can do, right? Like anybody can do that. But I heal you, I release you is simply my short end of it. And making a long story short can sometimes be the best way to get through the introspection when you're frankly getting bored of overthinking it all. Because I grew up in a household where the past was greatly put on a pedestal, whether the past was good or bad. Every day we were using each other in our household as a journal entry. We were using each other as a shoulder to cry on, which I think is, obviously, if you're in a close family, that's good. But there is a time where getting bored with the past is actually okay, and you're not being mean to your parent by doing that. You're not being dismissive, and you're not trying to say moving on. It's actually valuable to do that, and it's actually healthy. And getting yourself busy, I've talked about going over that previously in recent videos, that how to get yourself busy, and you have to really actively search out things. And some of you have taken the route of school, some of you have taken the route of getting a new job, some of you have taken the route of different ways of doing things. Maybe you've transitioned jobs, or you went to a couple different schools or things like that. But if it is something that, like, if you're not a student, it's even harder to do the work that it actually takes to find what you want to do in life, and to find, it's actually more of a struggle at first, like if you are growing up into adulthood more. And that's also a sign of moving on from the past, when you realize that school has become boring. Maybe you've passed all your classes, maybe it's no longer challenging to you. For me, college became way less of a challenge than I thought it was going to be, and I easily got bored and realized how much like high school it actually is. That was a huge way of moving on from the past, but it took a few years to realize that that was okay. I still had a lot of guilt about dropping out of college for a long time. And then I had to eventually realize how bored I actually was, and how challenged I felt in some work environments and in some experiences working and networking. And so what you end up finding is that this happens all the time anyway, where you get bored with the past in many different aspects of life, not just relationships. But the key to all of this is, I heal you, I release you. and realizing what qualifies us to talk about helping ourselves and teaching self help, and what is it that qualifies me to be in a self help space and have a self help platform. It's the expression of art that goes along with it that I value, the life design that I've done since I was a little kid. It's something I've always been interested in. I've been somebody who's had to heal since I was real little. Before self help became a trend on the internet, it's not something that I just jumped into because it was popular. And I don't believe that the real self help teachers and spiritual people who fall into this, who are doing this in a creative capacity, the ones that are genuinely interested in helping people are not doing it because it's trendy. So, and you can kind of tell who ends up being less real because of how bored they might get, or how nice they are no longer, and how they become a lot less kind to their fans or customers. I've seen that in some self help circles where if they thought they were really getting money out of you and things like that, they'll really be nice. And if they thought they were getting fame and views, they'll be really nice. And they'll kind of have deeper discussions and share things and understandings about everybody being in different directions of life. But once they become a certain level of a ceiling where you've reached a lot more of it, and that's where the empathic mask goes wrong. It goes wrong and it ends up not working out, and they don't reach that other side of empathic nature that needs to be reached. And it's been about a job, it's been about a business, but it's not their entire picture of life. And you get to a point in parasocial relationships online where sometimes you feel like you've known them because you've spent money with them in their products and things like that. So you feel like you can talk to them as a friend in the comments about advice and deep things that maybe you've experienced that they have not experienced. And it's kind of unfair for you to assume that, but then it's kind of unfair for them to assume bad intent from you when you've spent money with them. And it's not something you intentionally meant to sort of drop unsolicited. It's just something you really wanted to discuss since they decided to share an aspect. But because the empathic nature hasn't crossed over to some sort of enlightenment or spiritual growth for them yet, they've felt this really shitty feeling of like not being fully seen or not being fully understood. You can empathize to that, but at the same time feel that at the end of the day, it was a product you bought, it was a book you bought, it was a business that you were into for a while, and maybe it was a class you took. I've done those. A membership community, being a part of, and things like that. And at the end of the day, it was just about work to them and not necessarily the heart of it. And so at the end of the day, the customer is not necessarily always perfect, but they're not necessarily wrong. And, the customer is always right means that you learn, even with business partnerships, even with parasocial relationships, even with the family and the friends, you learn that this is your life's work. It's not just a business for you. I don't even make money doing this, to be honest. I make money in tech. That is like the work and the problems I can solve the most. And I definitely work in data sharing and data understanding, as well as like the UX that goes along with that. That's definitely a huge part of data and feeding data and that kind of thing. So I understand, even on a small scale, that I'm not even on a large scale, I'm not even getting rich over it, but even making a little money doing that is fun, and it teaches a lot about how much we in life actually rely on data to get through life, senses and smells and sounds and hearing and sight and all this stuff, and compensating for one sense over other senses that we're not born with, and things like that is really important. But I'm getting sidetracked because I find myself getting a little bit like I don't have much to say about the past anymore. I'm kind of bored of the topic, but in creating expressive art with music and things like that, I'm finding I have a lot of realizations that are a lot more fun to express that way when I do have these realizations in meditation as I write lyrics or generate lyrics and use AI to create music and record and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of where that's at. I really do appreciate you guys commenting on my stuff, and I've been catching up on a lot of engagement that I've missed, and been catching up. YouTube algorithm, I'm learning. I'm not hating on it. I'm actually kind of learning it, but I've missed out on a lot of your engagement towards me because of it. I've not learned it, and because of it being new and me not noticing that until now finally. So I appreciate y'all's engagement and just being out here connecting with me, and even willing to take the time that you take to watch and listen. And even if the engagement is a little bit longer to take in and longer to catch and everything, it's still, I value it very much. I value you very much for being here, and and just like really hearing me and where I'm coming from, and understanding that this teaching is transferable to each other, and you're teaching me something by being here, so I appreciate it. And but with that, that's it. I hope that you're getting different things, and I'm glad that I'm able to continue changing the channel as I evolve. That's kind of my biggest thing now at this point, is changing as I evolve with this channel. So I do appreciate you being here. Take care of yourself, take care of your life, take care of each other. And the foundation, the art, and the intentions don't change, but the expression, the creation, the environment can definitely change, and it's been fun sharing that with you. So thank you so much for being here. Stay tuned.